Welcome to The Array, the podcast that's dedicated to delivering AI clarity to the marketing community, presented by Cowlard. Every week, we'll discuss the latest developments in AI and MarTech with an informed and inspiring guest and unpack what it all means for today's enterprise marketers. My name is Toby Cowlard, Chief Product Officer at Cowlard, the AI brand messaging leader. And with me, as always, the bad seed to my spiced mead, it's Jasper Pye, Chief Technology Officer of Cowlard. How are you, Jasper?
I like that one. That was a good one. I feel like I've done really well out of that one.
I'm not quite sure the bad seed reference, and that's probably just because I'm super lame.
Well, I mean, I've gone straight to Nick Cave and the Bad Seed, so I actually went and saw recently. They played in London, and I've never seen Nick Cave, despite him being a compatriot from Australia. I've never seen him play live before, and he is good, like really good. Like comes out fully dressed in a suit, just goes. I was expecting him to be quite like low key because some of his songs are a little bit on the slower side, but no, there was loads of energy. It was a really good show. So I'm good with that one, and it makes me think of your birthday at the Renaissance Fair, which I.
The spice mead bit for sure, but talking about a full suit, you've come especially dressed for today's episode.
I know. I feel like I'm a little bit overdressed for a podcast. You know, 'tis the season. I've got Christmas parties and lots of fun to be had in the evening. So I'm just ready for those shenanigans.
Christmas parties. It's April 1st, Jasper. You're a bit late on that one.
This podcast's recording schedule is never going to stop messing with my head. I'm April Fools.
April Fools. Which whose Christmas is it? A friend's Christmas party?
No, it's an investor group that I'm part of, and so I've been invited to go and
hence
mingle.
The suit, I guess.
Hence dressing up a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Very nice. Very nice. So this week I've got a bit of an AI stat, the first of our AI stats, and this is from our friends at the Financial Times. That bosses are struggling to police workers' use of AI, and that employers have been scrambling to keep up as workers adopt generative AI at a much faster pace than corporate policies are written. It goes on to say that a recent survey found that nearly a quarter of the US workforce was already using the technology weekly, and figure rises to closer to 50% in the software and financial industries. Most of these users were turning to tools such as ChatGPT to help with writing and research, often as an alternative to Google, as well as using it as a translation tool or coding assistant. I'm actually surprised by the stat because I know that you don't have a ChatGPT Plus subscription, Jasper.
I do now. I felt so ashamed after the last couple of episodes that I had to go and sign up. I am a pro. I think I might get the $200 a month version. That's how in I am.
I still don't quite understand the value of the $200 ChatGPT.
I mean, I'm struggling a little bit.
You don't get the value of the $20 one.
Yeah, the extra.
You don't even get the value of AI at this point.
I just want them to put ads in. I have to admit, though, that the first thing I thought of when you said that stat wasn't like just standard use of ChatGPT. I think that's kind of gotten a little bit more dialed in since they had those scares at the start around training, even on the free version, right? Like you can opt out. The thing that it made me think about, and I'm not going to name the name of the product because I don't want to get into trouble, is have you been getting loads of emails about meeting assistants? Like literally our whole company is just getting absolutely spammed because someone, and I'm not going to name his name, signed up to an AI meeting assistant, and now he can't get rid of it from the system.
I've been in meetings where his meeting assistant will join.
Yeah.
And he's not even supposed to be in the meeting.
Yeah.
It's not even his meeting. It's just his note takers deciding to start and take notes on a meeting that he's not even supposed to be there.
Exactly. So if I'm an employer, my recommendations is employers probably don't need to worry so much about ChatGPT anymore, because I think there are some better guardrails in place, although employers probably should be signing up for paid versions so that they can control that from a central place. But some of these other tools out there, I'd be a little bit more worried about these meeting assistants that just, they have a mind of their own.
So our guest today is creative director Grace Cowlard, a creative director formerly at Adidas. Grace has years of experience working with fashion, lifestyle, and sustainable brands, and a passion for finding new ways to elevate the quality of creative output at scale. With her background in journalism and copywriting and a transition to script writing and development, she's long worked right in the intersection of strategy, creative, and data. A native of the UK, she joins us today from Amsterdam. Welcome, Grace. It's a pleasure to have you on The Array.
Hi, Jasper. Hi, Toby. Thanks for having me.
Welcome, Grace. Look, I've been really looking forward to this conversation. I think we've had a number of episodes now where we've talked kind of conceptually about the role of AI in creativity and marketing, but obviously you join us from what I can only describe as the sharp end. And there's certainly a big transition, I think, that the world is kind of going through at the moment. And I know there's I kind of see it. There's obviously excitement because there's obviously a huge potential for technologies such as AI to improve the way we work. But there's also concern, and I'm interested to get your perspective on that as a starting point. Like, how do you feel about what's happening in the industry in the moment, in marketing and creativity? What do you think the role of AI plays now and in the future?
It's a really good question. And as you said, it's so multi-layered. For me, in my personal, in the work that I do, I find AI incredibly exciting. It's a tool that can only give us more time, more space to really double down on the creative and human input. It's really this need for the emotional intelligence of humans that AI can then be used to, accelerate and amplify. But it's really having that human creativity at the heart, and then using AI for more of the scale, the volume, things like this. There is a lot of trepidation around jobs. It's changing what we understand as creativity, and also for consumers. Are they able to understand the difference between AI generated content and human creative content to really land that value that the human can bring? For me, it's really important using AI. As someone with ADHD, I really use it as a productivity and efficiency tools so that it can free some of my mental space for having creative ideas. It sets also some kind of guardrails, and it really allows me and my teams to bring creative work together. When we would have been spending it, on tedious tasks, research, volumes of content, like we can really then drive impact with the work that we do that's inherently human. There's a big differentiation between the types of work we would recommend to use AI with and the types we should really focus on pure brand expression. And that is the nuance that I'm trying to kind of share more information around. Volume and efficiencies, yes, AI all day. Pre-production, digitalizing the pipeline, great. But when it comes to true ideation, setting tone and voice, setting real brand direction, that is when humans need to be involved, and the AI becomes the acceleration once that is really locked in.
So if I was to distill that, it's kind of like the strategic initiatives really still fall into the hands of you and your team. But you believe that there's an execution layer, an automation layer, if you will, which can really benefit your team's ability to kind of, I guess, get out of the clutter. We live in a very, very kind of noisy world from a creativity perspective, from a channel adoption perspective now. And so helping the creative teams to kind of escape that through automation is kind of where you see the real benefit.
For sure. And I encourage my team to experiment with AI. I ask them, we get a strategic brief. I ask them to see how it works, see what it's coming back with, and encourage them to have a critical eye on what it's good for and what it's not. I think what can be potentially damaging is the thought that, AI can replace creativity totally. As mentioned, it's key for picking out the key parts. But the strategy and the real creative insights that we are drawing from, that is really where we have to be strong and set those as a foundation up front. In the context, we were talking about AI being a fuel for human creativity. In that context of a car, I'd really reframe AI less of the fuel, more like the acceleration pedal. You go further, you go faster. It reacts with other substances to release the energy for the work. But that other substance is the human creativity and the human experience in all its oddities and quirks. So I really see more and more brands leaning into that real human experience in terms of tonality and direction, and then using AI to amplify that human voice, let's say.
For creatives who have a kind of trepidation in using AI, how can they kind of get started? Because I think we're all in agreement that you can't really avoid it at this point. You kind of have to kind of lean in. But I can understand that trepidation. How do you think creatives can kind of start to leverage the power of AI without kind of almost getting overwhelmed by all the different kind of ways that AI can kind of change their workflow, and also potentially using it for the wrong thing, kind of, as you say, to kind of using it in replacing creativity rather than that kind of amplification piece?
Yeah, and you're completely right. It's not about if we're going to use AI, it's how, and how we're going to use that as a partnership. I like to treat AI as an intern. You need to feed it information. You need to treat it like it doesn't know everything, because it obviously doesn't. You need to give it context and frame situations to kind of get the best from it. And if people are, wondering how they can start with it, really give it some information about a project that you're working on. Obviously it depends, from imagery to copy. There's many, many different tools here. So you're going to have different use cases. And back to the car analogy, you're going to have a sports car versus a family saloon. They've got different purposes. So it's just knowing how to pick, the right tools. But start with, one of the big ones and really give it background information. If you can, upload extra context to it, personas. We've been recently working on a tone of voice development, and it's really evolving a brand from what is quite sterile and a bit flat to something with a bit more human emotion. Once we've kind of set that up, we then use AI to then generate multiple different examples to, flex the tone between channels, work out where we can dial things up and down. You can start to say, obviously, reframe this in the tone of the Gentlewoman magazine versus a Stephen Hawking, piece. This is where the real creativity lies, in not in if you use it, but to what ways that you can experiment with the tools, and layering tools together, taking output from one and putting it into another and having them talk to each other. That is, for me, where I see the true creativity with AI. There was a lot of, when Photoshop was introduced, people thought, this is going to take all our jobs. It's the same. It's a tool. And we just need to work with it and learn how to build that relationship, like the intern analogy, to really allow it to get more of the on-the-job experience.
Is there a way to discern between what should be kind of kept as a human task and what should be kept as an AI task? Is there some kind of rubric or rule that you would want to apply to it, or is it really on a case-by-case basis?
Yeah, I would say very simply, if it's anything to do with brand expression and really leave the aura of a brand, a top upper funnel kind of real brand awareness, big campaigns, I mentioned that tone of voice example, setting a strategy and a direction for a brand, then absolutely that needs to be human, and it needs to be, AI might help along the process, but that final kind of approach needs to be human driven, with a potential sprinkling of AI. For terms of output, performance, potentially CRM, anything where you need to drive volume at scale, and you might need multiple variations for different channels. We have so many different channels that we have to speak across to connect to marketing today. So where we need that variation, AI can absolutely help. Also then iterating as it goes, learning, reporting back, things like this. That is where I see a huge opportunity for creatives to save their time, their brain, their headspace, to be working on the bigger projects that drive better impact for brands, overall. There's a middle ground in there sometimes with social, in terms of being such a consumer facing, window onto the brand, and having, discussions internally, thinking about, how does AI come into that process? Is AI helping to generate content ideas that are then executed, in a human design way, and really keeping the AI content away from that future front of the brand, more in the planning, in the strategy stages, as opposed to being the front-facing content.
You mentioned earlier flexing the tone between channels. That's an interesting concept that I don't think we talk about. Can you go into that a little bit? I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been working with a brand to really reestablish and re-evolve their tone of voice. And we know, for example, performance, more commercial moments, performance CRM, a bit more of .com, they really need to be where we're driving a bit more of a sales message, a bit more of a clear call to action. There's still moments that we can, surprise and delight with tonality, things like this. But the focus, if you're already at that part in the consumer journey, you need to convert. Onto things like social and editorial and further into podcasts, things like this, understanding that there's going to be a different expectation, a bit more engaging content, a bit more conversational, and being able to really flex and lean into that. People are also in different mindsets, when they're wanting to complete a sale, get more information, that's quick, one and done. But if they're in the mindset to really sit with your brand a bit longer, have a bit more of a interaction there, that's where we also want to capitalize and really focus in on, and how can we have an interesting conversation. It's a relationship again, so how can we really have an interesting person at the dinner table, as opposed to someone who just regurgitates stuff they've seen elsewhere. So that's where I see that there's a really interesting way of AI optimizing more commercial. It's good at short, sharp, iterative content, and really leaning into more of the editorial and social content from a human perspective.
Do you think there's with just following, taking that a level further, do you think there's an opportunity? So one of the things we've seen over the years is that sometimes the assumption that brands may have, like you use the example of the kind of more promotional kind of sales based copy, oftentimes we'll have run into sort of business focused teams where they're like, we have to get the offer across. If we don't get the offer across, we're not going to land on conversions. And actually just through testing and iteration, we've in some cases been able to show that actually the offer based language isn't the one that drives the higher levels of engagement and conversion, which has always proven to be interesting as a learning point for those brands. But there's also the individual that's on the end of the message that you're sending to them. Like, what are your thoughts on because AI represents this huge ability to automate. What are your thoughts on our ability to kind of push the envelope of the brand persona that we're trying to convey to our consumers on the basis that we can communicate to them in a way that's maybe more relevant and more suited to their tastes, if that makes sense?
Totally. And I think it's a huge opportunity. It's one, though, where really we need to understand up front, who are those people? As long as we have that data and we can understand, their demographics, all of the normal 101 of marketing. But often that is really forgotten. Sometimes it's just a finger in the air to say, we're trying this. Will it convert? And what I've loved to start doing is testing and having a lot more testing opportunities to really change the message. It can be the same goal, the same strategy, but change the message depending on the audience to see if that better converts, if it's more engaging. That's really where my mindset is as well, about the benefits that AI can have specifically to performance, CRM, more commercially driven channels. Yeah.
As we're kind of getting to the point where I think language, as it relates to AI generated language, is becoming more and more common, I think, in the marketplace. But with imagery, it's still very much the Wild West, and still very much kind of early days, I think. I think about that recent Coca-Cola ad, and there's kind of a very strange public perception right now of kind of AI generated imagery. And how do you think that imagery will start to kind of fold into creativity as it relates to marketing? And do you think that it will kind of be the same as language? It will kind of just become table stakes at some point, as I think language is starting to become to some extent? Or do you think that that's we're a long way away from that?
I was actually going to reference the Coca-Cola ad because as soon as I saw that, heard it, it's a hype mechanic, isn't it? It's so the agencies can say, look, it's our first fully 100% AI produced advert. Watching it, you can see, to the trained eye, maybe other consumers can't see it, but you can see the flaws in it already. But I think that goes back to the point about the mindset, because imagery for consumers is like, what is their expectation? If they're, within their feed, if they're starting to see more and more AI created content, are they actually able to discern then what is real and what is fake? Do they care? And in certain interactions and transactions, do they actually even expect that it might be AI content already? So again, for more of the the volume creation, absolutely, AI makes sense for changing backgrounds, changing seasonality, personalization, cultural changes. Making content relevant to the consumers that see it. E-commerce is a perfect opportunity for that, especially needing so many different variations. But again, when we come back to more of the upper funnel kind of brand awareness, like big campaigns of brand expression, I think that is the opportunity for brands to really land the direction in an inspiring way. And I personally believe there's still going to be a massive need for human creativity there, specifically on imagery. Pure creativity as well is also bringing together two potentially very separate ideas and fusing them into one that adds new value. So I think where we will see more is people trying to use AI in interesting ways, not just, here's an image, here's a video, but more layering it over, taking in data, Freedom of Information Act, you can get quite a lot of, obviously, input there. And what can they do with that? How creative can they put that to the test? I follow a couple of creative strategists, and you come to the end of the year trend reports, and there's a whole bucket of them. And I know that they're carrying out sessions next year to really host experiments in AI. What can we do with this information? What can we do with these trend reports as a future facing? And how can we bring that together as potential briefs, repositioning for brands? There's so many ways that we can actually use AI creatively, whether that's copy or imagery. I feel that we need to broaden our thinking about it rather than just per craft, Equally with things like Sora update, there's a lot of hype around, you can write a prompt, it's going to create a video. There's still many restrictions there. It will evolve. The changes that we've seen in imagery and video in the last, year has been more than we've probably seen in the last 5. So it's going to, increase and rapidly get better and better. But there's still a lot of limitations, especially on the imagery side. And again, it's having the professionals, the creative professionals, the art directors, the videographers, the SFX artists, it's having them play with it to get the best out of it, rather than, Mr. Marketing guy typing into ChatGPT and getting a load of assets that he then posts on channels. So it's really that nuance there that we need to make clear.
I liked your use of the term untrained eye, and it's kind of made me think a little bit. Because I've noticed it, right? Social media feeds are full of AI, sort of either AI generated or AI augmented content these days. And at first glance, you don't notice it, and then all of a sudden you're like, no, hang on, this is a bit too slick, or this is a little bit too polished, or the hand's not quite right, and then it all starts to fall apart, kind of thing. But I think that's a really important point. It's like, does the person with the untrained eye actually notice those things, or do they actually just believe it? And I think it's an interesting thing to figure out.
For sure. And there's a really interesting thought line around AI as an aesthetic. Because if you're a brand that's, that's in your world, then of course AI created imagery is going to make sense. But if you're a brand, I'm going to take something like Dove, when their whole, brand promise, is to embrace, your imperfections. Everybody's got, their own input there. So when you're taking that brand and you're putting AI image there, that doesn't make sense. And that's going to be potentially damaging to the brand. So I think it is really in that strategy as well. It's aligning up front and identifying, does AI work for us as a front facing, showcase of our brand? Or is that something that we use more in the tools and the development and the processes of our creative teams versus imagery are we going to use those tools and actually put AI images out there to represent in that way? It's going to be an interesting time because, again, do consumers care? Like, it's so what? It's made with AI. The creatives and maybe the marketeers in the room will all have their own, personal agendas, but the people that we're actually selling products to, because let's face it, that's why marketing is here, do they care? I think that is where the testing and the kind of focus groups and the kind of consumer research is really going to come into play for some brands to double down on and others to really move, as I said, more into that human world, embracing the imperfections, etc.
I think they're missing a huge opportunity for satire. Come on, we're embracing AI's imperfections. AI is full of imperfections at the moment.
That's a good point. That's a great point.
I've got a friend who's he's a creative director for Sony Music. He does all of their photography and album artwork here in the UK. And he was telling me a story. They had their first piece of album artwork signed off by the artist that had been generated by AI. And he said, "Do you want to know the worst bit? No amends. Literally no feedback. They just signed it off first time."
I think it's cases like this that, it does become worrying, but that we hope that there's humans involved in prompting that. We hope
exactly.
that there's
Either
humans
that
involved. Yeah,
exactly. Either that, or him and his team just did such a good job of just hitting the mark. I mean, like you said, at this point, AI is very much a tool. We're not talking about autonomy or anything like that. This is the way I see it. They still had to come up with the idea that fed into the machine being able to produce the idea. All the machine did was kind of speed things up in terms of getting to a polished piece of artwork. So yeah, I think it still comes back to what you've been saying all along about driving the car, so to speak, and using the accelerator when necessary.
Yeah, there's something interesting there. Like, again, looping back to the Coca-Cola, like how much of that was for pure PR purposes versus something that they actually think creatively, this is what creative stands for Coca-Cola 2024, 2025. Yeah. And maybe in that light, AI does. But yeah, it's where and how it fits in a wider brand strategy. I think that's the most crucial part that people need to be thinking about, exploring. I mean, the fact that you led with from the FT, I thought that was really interesting because I know companies who are actually giving away licenses, enterprise licenses to employees and telling them, go experiment. Come back, case studies. We want your learnings, and we want to build and want to develop, but really pushing people to go out and play. I know there's going to be some other companies who are in completely opposite mindsets, but it also does depend on, startup, scale up. You can get scrappy, you can learn, you can make mistakes easily. Interesting also when it comes through with the bigger corporations, like something like Coca-Cola, where there's potentially a bit more red tape, a bit more, approvals to get through. I'm curious to see how those bigger brands are going to be evolving and if they can actually keep up with the speed of evolution of AI as well.
It's about being deliberate, isn't it? I think the Coca-Cola example is a great one where they've created an advert and it's created a discussion. And I'm sure there was a deliberateness to what they were trying to achieve through that to drive that discussion. It's a bit like the Jaguar rebrand. Like, the fact is everyone is talking about Jaguar now. And that, has nothing to do with AI, but the fact is they've done something that's pushed the boundaries and it's sparked a discussion. And that's ultimately what a lot of brands need to do to stay relevant.
Indeed. Have you seen the grayscale version of that image? Someone's just put a grey, obviously done with AI, but then said, this doesn't look very different to Jaguar. It's just the fact that it's pink. And, if you're talking about that in the light of AI, multiple different colors, what do different perceptions drive with consumers? So that is where, the AI part can come through. It is interesting, and anything that sparks this type of discussion, especially for brands at the center, people want to be a part of that as well. Although LinkedIn feeds, if they could just stop talking about Jaguar, that would be great.
I'm not sure if it's a good or a bad thing, but if you kind of put your hand over the D of Jacquard and compare the Jaguar logo with ours, it's disturbingly similar with the color.
We were here first.
We were. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing with the reaction to the Jaguar brand, but it's certainly true that no one's been talking about Jaguar more than this moment right now. So from that perspective, it's probably quite a good rebrand.
thinking about, AI in creativity generally, it's interesting. I'm a copywriter. I also work in script development, but I'm also working with brand teams within companies. So it's really interesting to have a foot in both worlds. And I really see this idea, the potential of a bit of a digital renaissance, again, bringing AI to what it does best. So humans are able to explore their own creativity, free up time, free up energy, free up space, and challenge themselves to be more creative, be more human. And I'm excited for where and what we're going to see and how brands actually take AI and experiment with it, drive it forward. But yeah, I'm excited about the future, but also very aware we need to put some guardrails in place, whether that's on a personal level or at a company level, just to ensure that we're making critical and discerning decisions about how and when we use AI.
So would you say that if there's a sort of managing up and a managing down aspect to what you've just described there? And I think from a managing down perspective, it sounds to me like you want to take your team on the journey. You like encouraging the team to use these tools from the perspective of being able to speed up and automate the things that free up their time to be more creative. And then managing up is like just being able to say to the business, hey, this isn't click a button and everything is solved. It's very much click a button and certain components of what we do will be automated and solved, but we still need to focus on the human components of that process. Is that how you're thinking about it?
Indeed. And it's really educating others who aren't particularly close to creative industries that it isn't just one button and done. That, as you say, it's parts of that process that really can accelerate the human part there. I think there's also a level of transparency around if you're in a creative environment, work environment where AI is encouraged or there's an openness to experimentation, then you can see when it works and when it doesn't. Where I think is problematic is if people do it behind the scenes and then presenting their work as if it was their own, because that's where there's a confusion on not only their level of output, but a greater understanding of how quickly, they can work, and actually the true level of creativity that we should be pushing for. So as I said, I'm encouraging like open dialogue around it within companies, and also building in a test and learn mindset, but with clear kind of milestones where if you're trying something out, you have a success criteria, you have those testings, you report back on it. If it works, great, scale it. Build it into your processes. If not, move back, reframe, and continue that approach. I think that's where brands and businesses need to really be a lot clearer and work in that transparent and open way with their creative teams.
Yeah, that's a good point, kind of articulating what the process was, because there's a danger that the process isn't fully end to end yet, and there's a danger if you kind of obfuscate it from the people that you're presenting back to, that you can make it look like it is, because they may not have a full understanding of all of the effort that's gone into sort of stitching it all together.
Exactly. And a really like a tangible example of this, for example, like I'm working as a script developer as well, working with writers to develop out their story. And the large majority of that is human, interaction, human work. But where I found really interesting using AI and where, it can bring it in different creative industries, reversing the perspective of a protagonist to see a story, how that would be told from another point of view. How does that impact their creative arc? Also for research phases, I was writing a script about a 1920s girl gang in South London causing havoc back in the day. But I wanted to understand, where would they be hanging out? Like, what's a day in the life of one of these characters? And that's where AI, from a research perspective, is also great. It can give you a list of now defunct closed pubs and theaters that you can check out, and really start to then feed that into like an image generation tool. And you're really on a good path for spurring creativity, taking that and then almost like handing it over to the writer and saying, now use this as your inspiration. This is your jump off point to write the script. And in that context, you never ask, AI in that sense to write the script. You just prep AI to prepare the tools to inspire the creative to do their best work. And that's the mindset that I'm really trying to bring towards AI tools and understanding within the industry.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great segue into our final fun segment.
What have you got in store for me today?
Have you seen this one yet, Jasper?
No.
Okay, good. Well, you'll both be in the dark on this one. This one's called Own or Outsource. Much as we have in today's conversation, it's important to consider your relationship with new AI technologies and what you want the future of the working world to look like, from the tools you might use and how you'll use them to what you hope to get in return. But as we look to the future, it can also be useful to think bigger, identify more potential avenues for transformation, and consider out of the current box ways AI can bring new efficiency to our lives. And so get ready to put your innovation cap on for own or outsource. I'm going to read from a list of creative jobs and responsibilities, as well as a few from our personal lives. And you guys can tell me if you think humans should do this or you think you should outsource it to AI. So here's a relevant one. Meeting note takers. Do you think AI should be your meeting note taker, or do you think that's the job for a human?
I mean, I think it's okay for AI to do it, provided it stays within the guardrails of when I want it in the meeting.
Grace?
Indeed. I'd say outsource, but with a human input, as in I take very short notes and then I'll put it into AI to finesse and refine.
I do worry. There's a bit of a laziness factor that we have to sort of, I guess, talk about at some point when it comes to AI. I do worry it's a bit like recorded meetings, like how many people actually ever bother to go and read, especially if it's a really long transcript. I think I'm with you, Grace. I'm going to change I think there's sort of a 50-50 on that one. Like, just pay attention to the meeting, I think, is my first thought.
Exactly. Blind transcription or blind use of any AI, not good.
Yeah. I don't, as a general rule, I don't take notes, and I never have done. So I guess that says a lot about me.
Yeah, I think actually you should have an AI note taker. You'd be far more productive. What about writing thank you cards?
Oh, that's got to be human.
It's got to be human. I mean, if you're going to go to the effort of writing a thank you card, then you might as well just write your own human input there. Otherwise, your relationship is with the machine only.
See, I've gone back and forth on that one because I'm awful at writing thank you cards. And if it means that everybody gets an entirely bespoke, relevant and contextual, personalized thank you card, maybe not with an AI image on the front of it, but then actually actually means that it happens. If the intention is there, does it really matter that it wasn't written by your own hand, or is that kind of defeating the point in the first place? And would they not have got a thank you card without such a technology?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the latter for me is probably no cards whatsoever. Christmas cards, no one gets Christmas cards.
Is an AI I mean, obviously a handwritten one is best, but is an AI one better than no thank you card?
I have to admit, I quite like the idea.
What about thought leadership blogs?
It depends if the thoughts are AI. If you're using the AI to generate the thoughts, then is that thought leadership? That's just AI slop. But if the human is there for the leadership thoughts and needs a bit of AI to finesse the delivery, yes.
Okay, Jasper, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say no to thought leadership blogs, full stop. But I realized I might get in trouble there with my LinkedIn contingent. So I'm going to go with Grace's answer.
What about brand or product video scripts?
Yes, depending on what the objective of the video script is. More commercially driven, I would say yes. More brand positioning work, I would say no. Okay.
I would say, on that one, I'm obviously not as close to it as you are, Grace, but I would say yes, a bit like the previous answer. Yes, when someone driving it, someone who knows what the goal outcome is. Yes.
Yeah, and having those guardrails as well to actually sense check. is this good? Are we sending this out? As opposed to AI's got it and we're done.
Yeah.
I know that Peter's in the room over there, who's our writer. And interestingly, he didn't put in here, but writing podcast scripts. What do you think, Jasper, about giving that to AI?
I better watch my words on this one. No, we should definitely keep that in the hands of Peter.
But it doesn't matter. If Peter buggers off, we'll just use AI. So it's fine. You can throw him under the bus.
I'm waiting for him to come off mute. Shut down the whole episode.
Okay, I've got another one here. What about calling your parents?
No, this is AI gone mad. This is exactly what we do not need anymore.
I don't know about that one. I quite like the idea of just my avatar speaking to my mum on the weekend.
The challenge is, I think we've got enough content of Jasper over all the previous episodes that I think I can call Jasper's parents as Jasper. We can just deep fake him. That would be great. That is what's happening, where people who have a big online presence, these I don't know what you call them,
influencers.
What's happening is people who are trying to scam other people, scammers, I suppose you'd call them, are basically deep faking these people's voices and then literally calling their parents and saying, "Can you send me $10,000 to my bank account and here's my details," which is actually kind of scary. If you think about it. So
it's scary enough if people fall for it just for the text. So then you add a human voice and it's scary.
The text when it's not even that convincing. The number of people that fall for the unconvincing ones. It's like, if you make a convincing video of your or soundbite of your children or something requesting money, I think that's really dangerous. Fight fire with fire. I say I'm just gonna have an AI version of me is the only one that answers the phone, because I get so many unsolicited calls. It's like that video where the guy puts the two pizza delivery services on the phone to each other, and it's like an infinity loop.
Or just an AI avatar of you going to meetings and taking notes.
That's on this list, going to meetings. So do you think not even AI note taker, but AI Jasper, your avatar going to meetings? Maybe you've been doing this for years.
The future of work it's the intersection of quiet quitting and AI. That's the future of work, is basically you automate yourself out of a job, but you don't tell anyone about it.
Yeah, until your avatar gets fired, and then you only find out later that you don't have a job anymore.
Yeah, your salary check stops coming in.
Well, it might be more productive than some of the meetings that you do sit in.
Precisely.
Top line notes.
There's a tool, AI, that decides if a meeting should be an email thread.
All right. Well, thanks, Grace. Thanks for coming on. Really appreciate your insights and appreciate your time.
Thank you. It was really lovely to chat, and really enjoyed it. Look forward to speaking soon.
That's it for season 2 of The Array. Thank you for joining us each week to watch, listen, and share your feedback. We'll be back soon with season 3, featuring more brilliant guests, more inspiring conversations, and more practical insights your brand can use to better connect with customers. As ever, please remember to like and subscribe to The Array wherever you enjoy your favorite podcasts. Additional thanks to our production partners at Itch Media and the team at Cowlard. Chief Marketing Officer Marissa Adlet, Product Marketing Diana Charlite, Creative Director Alejandro Santandrea, Senior Designer David Nolan, Brand Strategist Mariana Aranchibia Engel, Production Coordinator Erin Hernandez, and Writer-Producer Peter Berg. We'll see you next time.